Hello everyone, I'm Sunny. Great to meet you all. Today, I'd like to share a powerful sermon by Paul Tillich, titled, "You Are Accepted," from his very first sermon collection, The Shaking of the Foundations. Tillich begins his message with Romans 5:20. Moreover, the law entered, that the offense might abound. But where sin abounded, grace did much more abound. These words of Paul summarize his apostolic experience, his religious message as a whole, and the Christian understanding of life. Before speaking of what it means to be accepted, Tillich explains sin and grace using the terms of separation and reunion. He emphasizes the three dimensions of separation and the transformative power of being accepted.
Tillich explains sin in terms of separation. He divides this separation into three aspects: separation from God, the ground of all being, separation from others, and separation from oneself. He suggests that all human beings exist in this state of separation, which he also calls estrangement, or the state of sin. When we are in this state, what follows are sinful actions. These are what we commonly refer to as crimes or wrongdoings. Therefore, sin itself and sinful acts are fundamentally different. When one is in a state of sin, it is only natural to bear sinful fruit. Just as the soil of sin can only produce sinful works, regardless of whether a wrongdoing is severe or minor, there is no exception. We are all fallen into a state of sin, a separation from God, from others, and from ourselves. In the same way, Tillich uses the word reunion to explain grace. Grace is not mere sympathy or a helping hand. It is a reunion with other individuals, a reconciliation with oneself, and a complete connection to God, the ground of our being. Grace means being accepted in spite of being unacceptable. When grace arrives, it naturally produces acceptance, joy, peace, gratitude, and goodness. These can be called the results and fruits of grace. The ground of grace yields the sweet harvest of reunion. There is something triumphant within the word grace. Its foundation is far greater and wider than that of sin, more than enough to cover it all. We usually believe we have lived without sin if we have acted kindly and avoided bad deeds. However, as long as we remain in a state of separation, we are still within sin. In fact, if we live separated from God, others, and ourselves, we remain exposed to the impulse of wrongdoing. Therefore, we must abide within the foundation of grace. Let's look more closely at the state of separation, the state of estrangement. First, consider our separation from other people. We sometimes feel a profound loneliness, even in a crowd. In those moments, we realize how foreign we are to one another and how alienated life is from life. Each of us withdraws into our own selves. We cannot pierce through the center of another person, nor can they penetrate the veil covering our existence. This is true even between those who love each other most deeply. Because of this separation, we often exhibit hostility and aggression toward one another. Even Immanuel Kant, who praised human reason and dignity more than anyone, once said, "In the misfortune of our best friends, there is something that does not displease us." How many of us can truly say we are free from this? On the surface, we pretend to care for others, but in sophisticated and subtle ways, do we not secretly enjoy their misfortune? Are we not always ready to use others to find an opportunity for self-boasting or to satisfy our own desires? Though the degree may vary, we are often doing this without even realizing it. To recognize this is to understand the true meaning of separation from others and the overflowing of sin. This separation from others extends beyond individuals to manifest as massive violence between social groups and nations. Even as we encounter tragic news from home and abroad, every day we carry on with our daily lives as if nothing is happening. This shows that we are separated from everyone. Estrangement is rampant among all living things. Sin overflows like a flood. Now, let's explore the separation from oneself. World-renowned psychiatrist Carl Menninger, in his book Man Against Himself, analyzed how the human psyche harbors frightening aggression and destructive impulses that are turned inward. Our lives often move against our own well-being as we struggle through waves of aggression, hatred, and despair. We frequently tend to condemn self-love as mere selfishness. However, what truly deserves condemnation is not self-love, but its opposite, self-hate and self-destructive impulses. Beneath the urge to mistreat and destroy others, there often lies a hidden tendency to mistreat and destroy oneself. We speak of God's immense mercy and forgiveness, yet we often fail to extend that same mercy to ourselves, remaining trapped in self-loathing. 2,000 years before the birth of modern psychology, the Apostle Paul perfectly described the agony of this divided self. I do not do the good I want to do, but the evil I do not want to do, this I keep on doing. Now if I do what I do not want to do, it is no longer I who do it, but it is sin living in me that does it. Paul sensed a rift between his conscious will and his actual actions, a gap between his true self and a stranger within him. He was estranged from himself, and he called this state sin. While we usually act with full consciousness, we often feel as though we are being controlled by some alien force. This is precisely what it means to be separated from oneself. This is sin. It is what Paul called another law at work within me, an irresistible power, where I am separated from myself and lose the leadership of my own life. This is the weight of sin we all carry. Viewed this way, the totality of our lives is a state of separation from others and estrangement from ourselves. Why have we fallen into such a state of total separation and alienation? It is because we are separated from God, the ground of all being. This separation is a destiny that began with Adam and Eve. Disconnected from God, the source of our existence, we eventually lost our direction and began to wander endlessly. Instinctively, we feel the need for something fundamental, total, and unconditional. If that something we crave is God, the root of our being, then we can never truly escape Him. Whether we accept Him or not, we are bound to Him eternally. Tillich says this draws humanity into a suffocating abyss. Tillich called this deepest abyss of sin despair. It is a state of being utterly alienated from the source, while simultaneously being bound to it in eternal longing. A state of being destroyed, yet still preserved. Despair is not merely a feeling of sadness or frustration. It is what Kierkegaard called the sickness unto death. What makes this despair so terrifying is that even the extreme choice of taking one's own life cannot offer release. This is because we know, deep down, that we are tied to that root, the source of life, as if by destiny. This terrifying abyss is not always clearly visible. However, it reveals itself more starkly in our generation than in any before. We experience a more bitter sense of meaninglessness, emptiness, doubt, and cynicism than previous generations. These are not merely symptoms of depression. They are the cries of the soul, shouting that we are thoroughly separated from the ultimate meaning of life and the ground of being. It is a scream from the deepest abyss of despair. This represents the sin covering our era and reveals just how deep that abyss truly is. How then do we escape from this deep abyss? It is impossible through human effort alone. It becomes possible only when grace rushes in like a wave. The Apostle Paul proclaimed, "Where sin increased, grace increased all the more." This is not a shallow word of comfort for those fallen into sin. It came from an overwhelming experience that turned Paul's entire life upside down. While on the road to Damascus to arrest Christians, Paul encountered Jesus. He then realized a marvelous truth even at his most miserable moment, when he was a cruel persecutor and was rejecting himself God had never once rejected him. When Paul experienced this overwhelming acceptance, he was finally able to forgive himself and truly reconcile with others. When grace struck him like a storm, he returned to the home of being, the place where he had belonged from the beginning, but had forgotten for so long. Grace is never something we can earn through our own efforts or pull toward us by force. Trying to achieve something while separated from God inevitably leads to pride or despair, which only deepens the separation and blocks the path of grace. When and how does grace arrive? Grace rushes in like a wave when we cannot find rest in our great pain, when we pass through the dark valleys of a meaningless and empty life, when our self-disgust toward our own indifference, weakness, and hostility becomes unbearable, and when despair destroys all joy and courage. At the very bottom of the abyss, where there is no further to fall, grace overflows the moment we simply accept that we are already accepted. Like Paul's experience, grace arrives as a beam of light that drives out separation and reconnects us with God. It arrives unexpectedly when you accept the voice that says, "You are accepted. You are accepted. You are accepted by that which is greater than you." Experiencing this grace may not instantly make you a better person or grant you immense piety. On the surface, nothing may seem to have changed. However, your entire inner world is transformed. In that moment, the grace of reunion completely conquers the sin of separation. A bridge of reconciliation and union is built over the deep abyss carved by alienation and despair. This great experience requires nothing, no religious, moral, or intellectual prerequisites except for your acceptance. In the light of this unconditional grace, we experience an amazing change in our relationships with others and with ourselves. We can now look honestly into the eyes of others and experience a marvelous power to understand one another. We understand not just the literal meaning of their words, but also the hidden intent behind them. Even when those words are harsh or filled with anger, even if the words are hostile and harmful, we experience the grace to accept their lives. This is because we know that they too belong to and are accepted by the same God, the ground of our being, who accepted us unconditionally. We experience the grace to overcome the deep strangeness between genders, generations, nations, races, and even between humanity and nature. Grace enters all these separations and reunites us with those to whom we belong. We also recognize the power of grace in our relationship with ourselves. Because we are accepted by a being greater than the entire universe, we experience a moment where we can finally accept ourselves. It is a moment that makes us love our own, lives not because of our own goodness or self-admiration, but because of a firm conviction in the eternal meaning of our existence. We cannot force ourselves to self-accept. However, the moment we are given the strength to say yes to ourselves, true peace fills us and makes us whole. Self-hate and contempt, which used to eat away at us, melt like snow, and our soul is reunited with itself. This is when we can truly say that grace has arrived. As we have seen, sin and grace might seem like strange words, but they are not foreign at all. They are simply hard to see, because we are often caught up in the busyness of daily life. However, if you look deep within, you will find separation, sin, and despair lurking in the depths of your existence. In that moment, if you simply accept that, you are accepted by something greater than yourself. You will have the marvelous experience of grace overflowing.
This concludes my summary of Paul Tillich's sermon, You Are Accepted. Are you currently in despair? Why not look to the God who has already accepted you? He is very close to you. I pray that grace overflows in your life. Please support me with a like and subscribe, and leave your warm thoughts in the comments. Thank you for watching for so long. Your likes, comments, shares, and subscriptions give the Creator so much strength This has been your partner, Sunny.